أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. A second for the love of al-Baneen. A third for the love of Ali al-Akbar with the loudest of voices. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasul Allah. وعلى روحك وبدنك الطاهرة صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين خصوصا سيدي ومولاي كفيل الهواشم قمر بني هاشم أبا الفضل العباس عليه السلام. السلام عليكم جميعا يا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an achieved, successful astrophysicist, scientist, astronomer that has contributed many to the fields of academia, modern science, history, and the likes. Well accredited for establishing discoveries and improving our modern understanding of the scientific world as we know it, particularly with an emphasis on astronomy and astrophysics. However, Professor or Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, in his claim to celebrity and fame, through his work of enlightening and educating the masses of the good science of astronomy, also made a very remarkable claim regarding Islam. And like last night's reply to Ben Shapiro, everyone is subject to a full reply and a response to whenever they make claims that require further elaboration and claims that have absolutely no references. If this is not an area of your expertise, then you are academically obligated to provide a reference as to where you came with such conclusions. Your area of expertise, for example, as a chef, this is all you know about. You are an achieved and accomplished chef. You will not come and teach me about the automotive industry and the intricacies about that if this is absolutely not your world. And you do not begin to expect to teach these individuals who are perhaps graduates in the fields of the automotive industry, who work in this industry, and expect them to believe what you say, especially if what you have to say is rather preposterous. Likewise, in the fields of theology and Islam and Islamic history, with respect to scholarship, as we will see soon, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, of course he is also a professor during some of his time teaching, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, this area is not his expertise. Therefore, when he comes and proposes, for example, that Islam went through a golden scientific age, and all of a sudden, because of one work by one scholar, Islam and the scientific advancements and progression immediately dropped, This requires a reference, a substantiating point to prove such a claim. What happened was in 2006, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson has made or held a seminar, a presentation, where he stood in front of a stage, and a man that is a graduate of both Columbia University, the universities in Texas, Harvard University, in the fields, as we mentioned, of astrophysics, in astronomy, and the likes, stood up there and said the following line, that Islam has no more progression in the fields of science because of the work of one scholar in Islamic history. Now, if I were to ask you about this scholar, would you come as Muslims, because you are Muslim and he is a New Age atheist? You, as a Muslim, if you heard of the scholar, let me know. And if you have heard of him, because it doesn't take much to know about who the scholar is, tell me if you agree with the following statement that he made, that Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, the famous Muslim, albeit Sunni scholar, but a scientist to the highest degree in Islam, in the Islamic scholarship, roughly in the 12th century AD, came about 500 years after Islam was publicly introduced by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Ghazali said the following line, and this is his statement verbatim by someone who is so academically achieved and accomplished. He said that Al-Ghazali made the following claim: the manipulation of numbers is from the work of the devil. Islam, during his tenure, Al-Ghazali went through what we call the golden age. Where was this? In Baghdad, in Kufa. What happened? Algorithms were made, algebra, anything L something is typically an Arabic proposition that became a science today. Like we look into algebra, we look into algorithms and so forth. During his tenure, Al-Ghazali lived in that time period. You had the likes of Ibn Sina that came in. Of course, you had none other than Sadiq al-Muhammad salamullahi alayhi, who was at the peak of this Islamic golden age as well. But when Al-Ghazali came to the scene, he said the following claim, that the manipulation of numbers is from the work of shaitan, the devils. All of a sudden, the entirety of the Muslim Ummah decided not to produce any more scientific advancements. No more inventions, the clock, a Muslim invention. No more inventions, no more science, no more philosophy, no more chemistry, no more math. And as a result, the scientific progression in the Muslim society and Ummah stopped. And he used the following metric to substantiate his view. Now we said, if you come from a field that has zero relation with the field you are talking about, you are obligated to give a reference. For example, today, if one of our maraja came and said, let me tell you about Islam, do they have to give you a reference? Do they have to say, this statement I'm telling you, you can find it in Bihar or the Tahdhib or the Kafi of Al-Kulaini? They don't have to. Why? Because you trust them. You trust them for their academic integrity, for their Islamic dignity, for the years of research they've studied Islam. If they've clocked their 80s and 90s, these scholars have studied their socks off since they were 10. When they come and talk to me about a particular field, which is their expertise, I don't need to tell them, where did you get that from? Because I don't doubt them. But if someone who only studies Islam completely, and all they study is fiqh and usul, comes and starts teaching me about Mandarin history in China, I will say, Maulana, where exactly did you get this from? Especially if the accusation is rather preposterous. I want to know a reference at the end of the day. Likewise, when you made this claim, you didn't give us a reference. You know what he said? The following metric is how I will show you why Islam dipped because of Ghazali. He used the Nobel Peace Prize scientific recipients. The recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize, by the way, no older or a little bit older than a 100-year-old tradition where we gift people who have contributed to modern society and have left an everlasting impact in the fields of science, peace. There are Nobel Peace Prize recipients. There are scientific recipients to that Nobel Prize. He says that if you look at the Nobel Prize recipients in science, a majority of them are Jewish. About 25% of them are Jewish. But Jews are roughly 3 million or so. And Muslims, in his stat of 2006, are about 1.3 billion. As at the same time, when you call Muslims Muslims, stop saying Muslims. It's Muslim. How hard is it to say Muslim? You would imagine someone who's accomplished much in academia would finally get the difference. Muslim, Muslim. Is it hard? No one has that difficulty to transfer from the Z to the Seen. Not even our brothers, mashallah, who say wala zalin in Fatiha, they can at least say Seen, Muslim. No one has that difficulty. Why in the new age of Orientalism, people like to emphasize Muslims all of a sudden? Man, say Muslim and end the day. It's not that difficult. In any case, he claims that look at the list, they're mostly Jews. And the Jews are not that many. 25% of the recipients of the scientific Nobel Prize are Jews. About 0.5% are Muslims, or Muslims like he says, Muslims. And he even adds that the Muslim is not even a Middle Easterner. He's a Pakistani gentleman who contributed in the fields of science and the progression of that. And he makes up the recipients. The fallacies of these statements are nothing short but preposterous. First of all, where do we begin? The metric that you want to use, who some of these recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize became tyrants, as we will see in Myanmar, the Rohingya crisis that was sanctioned by the Council Secretary Sun San Chi, which was a lady who received the Nobel Peace Prize while she was under house arrest. They asked her, you are in the seat of the Secretary Council in Myanmar. Do you guys remember the Rohingya crisis that happened in Myanmar and Burma? You remember that? Muslims were being hacked with axes, persecuted. It was literally a modern day genocide. It was literally a modern day what? Genocide. You had the Buddhist monks who came, and by the way, we are not like other people where we say that's because of you, all Buddhist monks are extremists. Nah, that's not us. Not us Muslims. Those might be radical extremists that claim because a few group of riffraffs commit crimes against humanity, we will blame all of them. No, we don't say that. But you had those Buddhist extremist monks come and kill Muslim Rohingyas in Myanmar. This lady, Sun San Chi, she's a Nobel Peace Prize recipient. She received the Nobel Peace Prize. She did not denounce what happened. She was on the chair of making these decisions to lessen some of these atrocities, and she didn't do anything about it. Now, there was a warrant for her arrest because of crimes against humanity. Don't give me the metric of Nobel Peace Prize and tell me, look, because you're not on the list, that must mean you've done nothing. First of all, the argument was from when? Al-Ghazali's time. Nobel Peace Prize, when did it come out? You had just in the last 100 years or so, you found Nobel Peace Prize recipients becoming a thing. Just the last 100 or so years ago. Al-Ghazali was when? 1,000 odd years ago. More. He died in 1111 AD. And so when did the Nobel Peace Prize come in so that you can say, look at none of these Muslims contributed to the fields of science? This was with respect to the metric he used, and that is all he used. Now, going back to the initial argument, the mother of all ironies is when you say a Ghazali, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali is the one to have been the reason behind the lack of scientific advancements, then that's a rather preposterous claim, because if ever there was a Sunni Muslim scientist, it's Ghazali. His work on philosophy that led to famous debaters today like William Lane Craig, Professor William Lane Craig, to use his propositions in his philosophical work of Ghazali, the Ghazalian philosophical works, and he coined the term the cosmological argument for existence, or for the existence of God. Dr. William Lane Craig today coined the term the Ghazalian cosmological argument for the existence of God. You look at the universe and you prove the existence of God through a set of premises. Premise number one, everything that has a beginning was created. The universe had a beginning. Premise two, conclusion, the universe was created. There is no one today that will deny the universe had a beginning, and it was roughly 13.7 billion years ago it began. Did it begin? Or was it always forever? It began. It was never infinite. Why? How come it can never be infinite forever? Because if it was infinite, if it was always the case this universe existed, that would mean that tomorrow wasn't here yet. Has tomorrow arrived? No. But can you add one more day to infinity? Can you add another number to infinity or no? You can't, because it's an infinite amount of numbers. So because tomorrow hasn't arrived yet right now, you cannot add one more to infinity. Meaning that infinity has an end. And does infinity have an end? It cannot have an end. Right now, infinity stops with this very second. Tomorrow hasn't came yet, so we cannot add one more day to infinity. Does that make sense, or it's a bit comprehensive? Because infinity is contingent on the right now, because time is relative, that means infinity was always forever from the beginning, but it stops right now. That's not the definition of infinity. If it stops right now, time stops right now, and tomorrow hasn't arrived, that must mean if at the end there's a stop, at the beginning there also needs to be a stop. So it's impossible for the universe to have ever existed in this regression effect. It could not ever exist. Therefore, they coined the term the cosmological argument for the existence of God. Who proposed this philosophical understanding? Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. Dr. William Lane Craig today coins this through his work, a Muslim historian, philosopher, scientist. So to claim Ghazali is the reason why scientific advancements never came, that's a preposterous claim. Furthermore, we have to go back and study where on earth did he make this statement? Because the claim was what? That Ghazali said that the manipulation of numbers is from the works of whom? Shaitan, the devil. Did Ghazali really say that? If you search far and wide, Ghazali never said that claim. Never made that statement. Ghazali never said. Find it. I challenge right now, anyone, I will give you, I don't know, what do you guys want? I will give you something valuable. Find where Ghazali said that the manipulation of numbers, meaning to do mathematics, is from the work of shaitan. You will find the opposite. You will find the opposite. Ghazali said the closest you can find is from his work, Al-Inqadh min al-Dhalal. He has a work, if I am not mistaken, Al-Inqadh min al-Dhalal, or to be rescued from self-perishing. In his work, which by the way, the work has been translated into English, he mentions the following statement, which I think this is what he's trying to reference. He says that the layman individual who does not have a strong basis of Iman should avoid looking into the works and books of physics, mathematics, astronomy, and kalam, theology, aqidah, because it might affect his belief in Allah. That's obvious. Anyone who's weak in their Iman shouldn't look into areas that are beyond their expertise. This area, this field, is too much for you to comprehend. You will not be able to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala easy. So he says, begin step by step understanding God before you jump into the deep end of the pool. When you have a child today and the child is asking you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are you going to talk about Allah's omnipotent nature to its intricacies and the degrees of his over-encompassing being? No, you're going to talk about Allah's rahmah. You're going to talk about the simplicity of understanding one God. A child whose understanding and knowledge of Allah, of theology, who is very basic in that regard, you do not throw at them very difficult to comprehend work. Ghazali was trying to say this. Now, I, as a Shi'i, I don't necessarily need to care what this individual said. But I also want to give credit where credit is due. The man never said that. The man never said that the manipulation of numbers is from the work of shaitan. I call out again, a challenge. Anyone, can you find me the statement? He never said that. The closest he said is if you are weak in your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then avoid reading the high complicated works of mathematicians, of physics, of even theology and aqa'id, because it might affect your belief. So start step by step. And in his other work, Al-Ghazali does praise the sciences of today, and he highly recommends people to learn more about physics and mathematics and all these sciences of the like. So there was no claim that he made. Question: then why did Islam not progress more after Ghazali in the fields of science? Why? Because when he makes this observation, he claims that after him, everything suddenly dipped. There seems to be a factor he forgets. In Islamic history, or in general history to begin with, what happened after Ghazali died? If anyone knows their history, after the year 1111 AD, what happened after he died by about 100 years? Some invasion took place. Who invaded the Middle East, brothers and sisters? Can someone tell me? The Mongolian Empire, led by Holako Khan. The man came all the way from Mongolia and came and sacked Baghdad in the year 1250. They came to where? The Middle East. When the Mongolian Empire comes, are you able to look up into the sky and study science and space and astronomy? Is that easy to accomplish when there's a sword being swung at your neck? Is that easy to do? When the Mongolian Empire comes and pillages Baghdad, which was called the capital of science. Baghdad was known as the Asima of knowledge. They called it Baytul Ilm. Baghdad was the house of knowledge. When they come and pillage Baghdad, do you know what they did to Baghdad? Do you know what these invaders did? The Tigris, the Furat, and the Euphrates. We've all heard of these two rivers. Historians say that the Tigris, meaning the Furat, was turned red from the blood of Muslim scientists, slaughtering like you've never seen before, to the point that the Furat turned red from blood of whom? Muslim scientists. The Euphrates turned black. How did the Euphrates, how did that turn black? From the ink of the books of the library of Baghdad that they threw into the river, and all the ink was left into the river, and that river made the ink flow through it. It turned into the color black. On one river you had redness from the blood of scientists. On the other river you had the color black from the ink of the work of these scientists. The famous library of Baghdad, with its tens of thousands of scientific manuscripts. Do you know what kind of manuscripts were in there? The original Plato's Republic. That was translated from Greek into Arabic. We do not have the original Greek. You're talking thousands of years ago when Plato wrote his Republic, Jumhuriyat Platon. What happened was the Muslims in the Golden Age translated Plato's Republic into Arabic. The earliest manuscripts of Plato's Republic are in Arabic. That work was in the library of Baghdad, and it was found floating like this in the Euphrates River, just floating like that. You forgot to factor in an invasion, a cancerous invasion that wants to end anything known as knowledge and science. They don't care about that. When invaders invade, they only care about pillaging, money, rape, killing, stamping their presence in society. They don't care about science, astronomy, mathematics, the study of anatomy, botany, biology, neuroscience, physics, astrophysics. They don't care about these things. How come you forgot 100 years after Al-Ghazali, you had the Mongolian invasion? The second issue he proposed with respect to Ghazali is that he said Ghazali was a big deterrent from allowing Muslims to become curious about science. What do we mean? He said Ghazali in his work mentions that the acts of nature are not due to the natural laws of physics. Again, he made this claim and statement in a seminar and speech in 2006. He also repeated the speech many years later, and he made the same exact nature of his statements were re-uttered later on. He said that Ghazali was the reason why Muslims weren't progressing. His second argument was what? That Ghazali did not inspire Muslims to pursue science. Why? Because he said that the laws of nature and the actions that take place in nature are not because of the laws of physics. They are because of the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one that makes the apple fall from the tree, not physics, not gravity. Allah is the one that makes the dry wood burn and combustion happen because of what? Allah, not because of anything else. Neil deGrasse Tyson suggests and seems to allude to the notion that this will discourage people from learning more about science because they can answer everything with Allah wants it, khalas. If Allah made it happen, He can make it happen. There's no need to study, to investigate, to learn, to pursue. Allah made it happen. Khalas, Allah made it happen. Now let me ask you something. When Ghazali makes a statement like that, and he says that nothing can happen except by the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that scientifically contradicting? Is it scientifically contradicting to say that not a leaf can fall, not a plant can sprout, not a tree can grow except by the qudra of Rabbul Alameen? Is that scientifically contradicting? Tell me, does that contradict science or no? Of course. It's not just Ghazali, my dear friend. With respect to your wonderful academic integrity that you have shown, mashallah, it's not just, it's every single Muslim. Every single Muslim, and not just that, every single Christian, not just that, every single Jew. We all believe that God is the sole reason behind our existence. So of course we're going to believe that nothing can happen except that Allah wills it. This seems to suggest that, wait, us as curious researchers and inshallah scientists to be, we will not be motivated to investigate why nature is the way it is, because we can always answer everything by saying Allah wants it to be that case. That's not what the Quran said. The Quran didn't say that. The Quran, for Muslims, it said that you should never be complacent. Go and learn more. And never use just the notion, just because Allah made it be the way, that doesn't mean you should not pursue understanding and enlightening yourself. It was Rabbul Alameen who said in the Holy Quran, قُلْ سِيحُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَاعْلَمُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقِ. He said, go travel the earth, travel this earth. When he says travel, what does Allah mean? To go travel and come back and do nothing and accomplish nothing? Go and learn. Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said the beautiful line, اطلبوا العلم ولو في الصين. Pursue knowledge, ilm. By the way, ilm is not exclusive to fields of religiosity or theology. It's every single science possible. Pursue knowledge even if you have to go as far as China. طلب العلم فريضة على كل مؤمن ومؤمنة. The pursuing of knowledge is a what? فريضة. What is a فريضة? From the fara'id. It is an obligation. Salah is a faridah. Prayer is an obligation. Pursuing knowledge and getting more enlightened, revolutionizing your intellect with ilm, that is an obligation upon every, and guess what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said? An obligation upon every who, what? Muslim man and Muslim woman. Pursue knowledge. You've been given the intellect that differentiates you from haywan, from animal. You are insan. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We have honored the children of Adam. Use your brain. Go learn. Go study. But there are no institutions that can teach me. Go as far as China if you have to. And back then, China, relative to where the Islamic region and peninsula was, that was very far. That was almost considered on the edge of the earth for some people. But Rasulullah said, doesn't matter. Go there if you need to pursue knowledge. Islam invites you to pursue knowledge. But yes, it also suggests and tells us to always learn that nothing can happen except that Allah wills it to happen. Yes, this does not contradict. This does not make us not motivated, nor does it not make us curious. It makes us more curious. Meaning if Allah can make the natural sciences in the woods and the forest and the desert be the way they are, then subhanallah Rabbul Alameen, there is more I need to discover. This at all does not deter a person from becoming curious. There was an interesting moment where Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson also went on a podcast, a famous podcast, and he was speaking about how water, when it freezes, it insulates itself and it insulates the remaining body of a river. He mentioned that water, when it freezes in a lake, you have fish. And the fish, if the water freezes completely, one big solid lake of ice, all the fish would die. But Allah did not allow, He does not say Allah, this is for me. Allah does not allow the entire lake to freeze because of the water and its buoyancy. Buoyancy, the scale of how an object can float on water. Because water has a specific level of buoyancy and ice has a specific level of density, it floats. When it floats, it forms a thin sheet of ice on top of a lake. This was him stating, a phenomena that happens when the lakes freeze and why fish don't die. It forms a thin sheet of ice on top of the river or lake bed, insulating the rest of the water, keeping it a little bit warmer and not freezing. If ice had a degree less of buoyancy, it would have sunk to the bottom, and then that top layer would have froze because the air is colder than the water, and that would have sunk because it doesn't float, and that would have sunk until the entire river or the lake becomes one block of ice, and the fish and ecosystem would all die. But Allah had ice become buoyant enough such that it floats, serves as an insulation so that the fishes and sea creatures and animals and plants can survive and the ecosystem can continue. And the irony is, sometimes you listen to new age atheists and you become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you hear something like that, you can't but help to say, Subhanallah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He's merciful even to the fishes, even to the ecosystem. Natural sciences, when you look at this, you become inspired. And yes, we can become inspired from those who may not necessarily agree with us on a theological level, who may have even said statements and have rhetoric that is anti-Islamic. If they have a science to produce, this shows you the emphasis on learning in Islam. Islam will tell you, خُذُوا الْعِلْمَ, take knowledge even from what? The lips of insane individuals. من أفواه المجانين. Take knowledge even if you have to take it from the lips of majaneen. What's a majnoon? Someone insane. Now, is it referring to someone who has a problem mentally? No, it's not. It's talking about anyone that is on the even opposite end of the spectrum that you would never speak with. That person, do you know what they believe in? And this is a lesson for all of our Shi'i brothers and sisters that are passionate about Shia Islam. Maybe you might hear a Sunni brother tell you something, but if they're talking to you about something that benefits you, if they're only talking to you about an area of work, of school, they want to help you, but they happen to be Sunni, don't come with that attitude, I will never speak to them. No. Why? You disagree with them on a theological level? Okay. On a historical level? Okay. Disagree with that, and where you see you meet in the middle, accept that. There's nothing wrong with this. Christians, how many of you have teachers that are Christians? Do you reject them? No, you're Christian, I can never learn from you. That is the recipe to getting an F in a class, to failing a class, and no one wants that. We can learn from these individuals, brothers and sisters. And furthermore, it was colleagues who were close to Neil deGrasse Tyson in the academic world that also condemned such statements. Professor George Saliba. Professor George Saliba is a professor in Columbia University in Arabic and Islamic science. He produced a book where he discussed the scientific achievements of Muslims, guess when? Post the Ghazalian era. So after Ghazali died, he looks at the scientific advancements of Islam after Ghazali. What was the initial claim? That because of one book, all these Muslims stopped studying science. Because of one book. First of all, the Shia, we do not base our theology on a Sunni historian or a Sunni science. That's us, number one. Secondly, Ghazali himself, he recommends and advocates the studying of science. Thirdly, you provided zero reference. Fourthly, the metric you used was incorrect. Fifthly, colleagues in the academic world disagreed with this. Yes, we do see that because of the Mongol invasion led by Holako Khan and the likes, we had a halt. We had a halt in the Islamic science and that department. We definitely had a halt because you had people ravaging and pillaging cities. That's true. But that doesn't mean there were not scientists in Samarkand, in the observatories of Samarkand, astronomers who would observe and look, who were away from some of these issues at a time period. Or you have the likes of Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi, a very famous polymath, brothers and sisters. He was a theologian, historian, scholar, scientist, mathematician, and astronomer. We discussed this a few nights back. He, if you read Nicholas Copernicus and his diary mentions he became inspired by Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi. By the way, Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi came in the 14th, 13th century after Ghazali by over a few centuries. He came after Ghazali. But what was the initial claim? That science dropped because of one book of Ghazali. Then where did Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi come from? Who inspired Nicholas Copernicus? Who inspired Galileo Galilei? Or what about Qutb ad-Din al-Shirazi? This man as well, scientist, came after Ghazali, who inspired many Muslims and non-Muslims alike after Muslim scientists. This claim, brothers and sisters, is very faulty. And we hold people accountable to these type of rhetoric and these type of statements. Now, we can learn from them. Yes, we can. That doesn't mean because someone says something wrong, we can't learn from them. But this all comes from a postmodernist, orientalistic, new age, atheistic worldview that's being adopted today. Postmodernist, orientalistic, by saying Islam, you have to make the sharp disconnection. Islam, religion, and science, they do not meet hand in hand. They cannot marry within one another. Islam and science cannot. The postmodernists and Orientalists, especially those who are atheistic in their worldview, will always make that claim. Religion is something, science is something else. Is that the case? It was none other than the very root of the religion of Islam. Imamuna Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala who encouraged the study of science. There are ulama today that say 90% of our theology comes from Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha. Why? Because when he was forced to debate the various scholars and scientists that Ma'mun al-Abbasi would bring to Mashhad in order for them to debate Imam al-Ridha, so that maybe one day he loses in these debates and the Shia will notice that he is not all that and they should stop caring about him. We learned from Imam al-Ridha our responses to Muslims versus Christians and the Bible, because Imam al-Ridha debated Christian monks. We learned how to respond theologically with those from the rabbinical worldview, because Imam al-Ridha debated Judaistic monks and priests and rabbis. We learned how to respond to all of these, to the point Imam al-Ridha even discussed the fields of medicine and the progression of that science. Imam Ridha has a wonderful piece called the Golden Medical Dissertation. I recommend everyone to look into it. The Golden Medical Dissertation of Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. It is a compendium, a magnus opus of a work that has in it the science of medicinal usage during the seasons. In the season of January, February, March, which medicine you should take to maintain your health. During the summertime, which fruits and vegetables and roots you should take to optimize your sensory glands. From aromatherapy to creams and ointments, Imam Ridha discusses everything in that work. How to avoid becoming bulimic, anorexia, overweight, what to eat to get rid of headaches and these issues. Imam Ridha alayhi salam discusses all of these. Is this not a Muslim scientist, brothers and sisters? And is he not the embodiment of our religion? As Muslims, we are to learn. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A second for the love of Lady Zahra alayha salam. And a third for the love of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha with your loudest of voices. Because our leaders manifested the study of the sciences, brothers and sisters, it is our obligation to become the best Muslim scientists today. And it was none other than, we went to the eighth Imam of Ahlul Bayt. Let's go back to the first Imam of Ahlul Bayt. It was none other than Amir al-Mu'mineen. We began with Rasulullah, of course. And then we went to Imam al-Ridha. And now we're coming back to Hassan Amir al-Mu'mineen, who said, Al-ilmu ilman. Knowledge is two. Ilmu al-adyan wa ilmu al-abdan. Knowledge is two. The knowledge of theology, deen, adyan. But by the way, he said adyan, not Ilmuddin, the knowledge of one religion. Learn it all. Adyan, multiple. Learn about everything you can regarding the various beliefs around you. The worst thing to be, brothers and sisters, is an ignorant Muslim. Do not be jahil with those who live near you and carry different beliefs. Ilmul adyan, multiplicity of religions and worldviews. Wa ilmul abdan, and the study, the science of anatomy. Abdan, al-badan, body. Learn about the human body, medicine, anatomy, biology, physics, neuroscience. This is all connected to the human body. Amir al-Mu'mineen says knowledge is divided into these two parts, brothers and sisters. Learn about these things. Our knowledge and our understanding of Islam, brothers and sisters, we will not get it from New Age, atheistic, postmodernistic professors or doctors. No matter how much they have produced goodness in other fields, because those other fields are their expertise. If you are not a theologian, do not talk about theology. Go learn about theology, then talk about it. But if you do not learn about theology, and you are not an expert in theology, then the next time you speak about theology, this is a message to Dr. Tyson and those who like to speak about history and Islam, perhaps fields that are outside of their expertise, then please next time reference, because our youth, our shabab and shabat, our teenagers like to watch you because you have some good to give in science and astronomy, and people are into these fields. Next time you go and make such a claim, please reference, because they might become gullible and naive enough to believe in the nonsensical statements that you produce that are absolute lies. And with this, brothers and sisters, we are coming now to the night of an individual that did not allow for a moment the influence of society nor influential figures to sway his aqeedah. Because he would look at the circumstances and he would see very influential figures near him, this individual you're coming to right now. And no matter what they told him, his aqeedah would not waver. He would stay firm in his belief. And whenever he doubted something, he would always go back to the leader of his time, the Imam of his time. Who are we talking about? Aliyul Akbar. Aliyul Akbar alayhi salam is the very embodiment of the ideal Muslim youth. Of course, he is Al-Akbar. He is the oldest of Sayyid al-Shuhada's children. He's the oldest. And you know, if a father, may Allah bless our fathers that have sons. Some of those do not have sons, but we can still resonate with those who we've seen loving their children, especially their oldest son. The oldest son to a father is someone very special, because there are those memories, there are those moments. This was the time, because of him, you became a dad. Ali al-Akbar was so beloved by Abu Abdullah. He was this young, healthy, strong, handsome, courageous mu'min of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no one has seen before. And this is not coming from me, and nor is it being said emotionally. I am not speaking to get anyone emotional. This is fact. Who does this come from? Abu Abdullah himself. He says, Salamullahi alayh, that when Ali al-Akbar came to me on the 10th of Muharram, he looked at the qawm. Remember, Ali al-Akbar was the first from the Ahlul Bayt of Abu Abdullah to die and fight. Ali al-Akbar came to Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, and he said, my beloved father, Yabna Rasulillah. Look how he talks to his father. Look at the honor. Give me my chance to go and fight. When Qasim later wants to fight, Abu Abdullah says, no, never, no. I love you too much. When the others want to fight, Abu Abdullah says, no. Even when Abu al-Fadl alayhi salam, when he wanted to fight, Abu Abdullah said, please, if you die, then who do I have to support me? Because Abu al-Fadl was Abu Abdullah's backbone, brothers and sisters. But when Ali al-Akbar came, do you know what Abu Abdullah said? Ulama say he didn't respond because it hurts a dad to say to his son, go and die. Because you go to imminent death. You're going to become shaheed. Abu Abdullah, what did he do to give Ali al-Akbar permission to go and fight? He raised his hands to Allah like this. And he began to weep, Salamullahi alayh. As Ali al-Akbar got on his horse, he said the following line. He said, Ya Allah, please be witness that the most to resemble your Prophet, قد برز إليهم أشبه الناس بنبيك منطقا وخلقا وكرامة برسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. The closest to resemble your Prophet in logic, in vision, and in their character, how they looked like. Ali al-Akbar represented the Holy Prophet. وَكُنَّا إِذَا اشْتَقْنَا جَدُّنَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ نَظَرْنَا إِلَيْهِ. And whenever we missed our grandfather Rasulullah, we would look at Al-Akbar and we would remember Rasulullah. Lady Zainab, when she missed her grandfather, she would gaze in the face of Al-Akbar. Ali al-Akbar went to the field and he began to introduce himself, saying, أنا علي بن الحسين ابن علي نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي والله لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي أطعنكم بالرمح حتى ينثني أضربكم بالسيف حتى يلتوي ضرب غلام هاشمي علوي. I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and we have the greater right over the Holy Prophet and his family. And by Allah, the son of Zina Yazid will not have any control over us. I will lunge at you with my spear until it bends. Spears do not typically bend. How hard is Al-Akbar going to swing at them? And I will swing at you with my sword until it cracks. The slash of a Hashemi Alawi. I'm going to remind you of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You thought he died? I'm back right now. This is Ali going, but Ali al-Akbar. Ali al-Akbar goes and fights, and he begins to remove the enemies of Allah. Then the mother of Al-Akbar comes to Abu Abdullah. May Allah bless all our mothers. No mother wishes to see her son go out and fight and be surrounded by tens of hundreds of men. Layla comes to Abu Abdullah and she begins to say to him, Ya Hussein, what can I do when I am unable to help my son? Ya Hussein, how can I help? Layla was told by Abu Abdullah, go back to your tent and make dua to Allah, for the dua of a mother is always mustajab and the dua of mothers are always answered. Make dua for Al-Akbar. Layla, when she would wait, she would look at the face of Abu Abdullah. She couldn't handle looking at the field. So when she would look at the face of Hussein, it would tell her how Ali al-Akbar was. Until one moment, how the face of Hussein became distressed. Hussein alayhi salam became distressed. She saw the face of Abu Abdullah sad and shocked. May Allah never make you see that moment. I can envision it like this. It's like you have a terminally ill son at the hospital and you have nothing but hope in Allah to cling on to, and you can barely see him living until the doctor comes and tells you there's no more hope. What happens to the face of a father that sees that there's no more hope for their son? That sign and that face fell upon the face of Abu Abdullah. Layla went back to the tent and began to make dua, saying, Ya Allah, Allahumma bi ghurbati Abu Abdullah, Allahumma, oh Allah, on the loneliness of Abu Abdullah, please return back my son. Ya Rad Yusuf ila Yaqub, rudd anni waladi Ali. "Oh, the one who returned Yusuf back to Yaqub, return to me my son Ali." And that moment her dua was answered. Ali al-Akbar returned, and he returned but panting and filled with blood all over his armor. And he came to his father, Aba Abdullah, and he told him, "My beloved father, the armor is heavy and the thirst is strong. What can I do?" Aba Abdullah told him, "Just wait one more hour. Your grandfather Rasulullah will give you water from his blessed hand and cup, of which you will never become thirsty ever again. Go return to your mother and see her and say farewell one more time." Ali al-Akbar returned to the tent and he came back to the field. He began to fight them valiantly and he removed tens of them. Ahadith say he removed over 100 of the enemies of Allah, beyond that number, until Ali al-Akbar was struck with the arrows over his body and he clinged on to the horse. And because clinging on to the horse allowed the horse not to see, the horse ran back to the tents of the enemy and they began slashing al-Akbar. They began hitting al-Akbar and they began slashing him until he fell off his horse. And he said, "My beloved father, alayka minni salam." He said, "My beloved father, may peace be upon you." Aba Abdullah ran to the field and like a lion killed all of them. He saw al-Akbar laying on the ground. Only one time Hussein did this in Karbala. He laid flat on the ground with al-Akbar. How much pain was in his heart. He laid to him and he said, "Bunay Ali, my beloved son Ali, after you, dunya has no meaning to me." He saw al-Akbar crying, but he noticed a small smile to him. He said, "Why do you smile this way?" He said, "Because I cry thinking what will happen to you, but I smile, I see my grandmother Fatima and my grandfather." I cry, I see my grandmother Fatima, and next to her Rasulullah. When Abu Abdullah ran to the field, he ran the opposite direction by mistake. Sukaina said to him, "Father, Ali was that way. Why did you go this way?" He said, "My beloved daughter, don't blame me." When I saw my son fall, it's like I became blind. I cannot see what happened after he fell this way. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. فرج عنا يا الله. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم. Oh Allah, we ask you to raise us with Al-Akbar in the Akhirah and to grant us His Shafa'ah in this dunya. Oh Allah, we ask you to never separate from us the love of Abi Abdullah. Oh Allah, we ask you to grant us the ziyarah of Abi Abdullah. Oh Allah, we ask you to heal all of our sick ones, to grant them the shifa, Ya Shafi, Ya Mu'afi. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء سيما من أوصانا بالدعاء. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.